Hello guys, welcome to United's Glory. Manchester United get thrashed at Old Trafford 6-1 against Jose Mourinho's Tottenham Hotspur. Thrashed 6-1. Now, I've got extremely mixed feelings about this game. None of them are particularly positive, but ultimately the absolute sensationalism that comes out of some people's mouths, especially that of Gary Neville. Gary Neville, the absolute hypocrite. This guy gets paid millions of pounds to lack any form of logical reasoning whatsoever. Okay, right, I'll get onto him. I'm not going to do player ratings in this video because every player was simply that poor. They don't deserve anything more than a 2, not a single one of them. So basically, I'll just say this. Pogba, Maguire, Bay all get a 1. The rest of them get a 2. That's how bad it was. So I won't go into player ratings. Now, in terms of the game, of course, we had a very fast start. Anthony Martial did extremely well to win a penalty. Bruno Fernandes buried it. Bruno Fernandes is starting to remind me of Ruud van Nistelrooy when it comes to penalties. There was simply a patch where Ruud van Nistelrooy would not miss a single penalty. He did miss eventually against Arsenal where he hit the bar, but ultimately before that, he was deadly. And Bruno's starting to remind me of that. He is deadly from the penalty spot. We get a penalty, it's basically a goal, no matter the amount of pressure. I guess that's the only positive angle you can take from this game is that Bruno's deadly at penalties. But we're getting called Penchester United for a reason because that seems to be the only way we can score goals at the minute. Anyway, of course, we're 1-0 up. Within a few minutes, we're 2-1 down with some absolutely diabolical defending. Now, I'm going to admit that I'm one of the bigger defenders of our defence. I do think the defence is the easy scapegoat. I still think it's the easy scapegoat because the attackers at our club aren't as good as people make out. And that's a fact. Not today, but if you look at other games where we concede 2 goals and we lose 2-1 and people are blaming the defence for it, well, why aren't our attackers going in scoring 3 goals then? Anyway, that's not the point today because I don't expect our attackers to score 6 goals. But there was something else at play today, which is why we lost so heavily. Because we would not have lost this game 6-1, 11 against 11. Of course, we were 2-1 down, so the game was going against us, and Tottenham did catch us on the attack twice. Well, the counter-attack, which is basically how Jose Mourinho team sets up. You should know this if you're a Manchester United fan. He parks the bus usually and plays on the counter-attack. I'm not going to say he was parking the bus today because he didn't have to, but ultimately they were playing on the counter-attack. They caught us on the counter-attack when they went 2-1 up. And of course, our defence was just all over the place. They had 2 or 3 chances in quick succession. And Gary Neville uses this to say that Manchester United are on the ropes and that we're getting absolutely pummeled. But only a few minutes before, Marcus Rashford hit the post. Now, it may have got ruled offside, but it may have not done because we didn't get to see the replays to actually prove it was demonstrably offside. It didn't matter anyway because he didn't score, but that was clearly a chance that could have put us in at 2-1. Mason Greenwood had a few shots at goal. We were very, very much in the game. Very much in the game. So I'm not having this. Manchester United were at the game before the red card anyway. Manchester United were very much in the game. You're always in the game at 2-1. Even if you are getting pummeled in the manner that Gary Neville seems to think we're getting pummeled. We got pummeled against Brighton. That was an actual pummeling last week and we managed to win. Which should be proof enough that you can still win even when you play badly. Anyway, we were 2-1 down and Martial elbows Lamela. Well, I don't know what it was. It wasn't an elbow. Somehow, Mike Tyson once again has decided to visit England and a soccer match to basically jump on the pitch and deck a football player. I don't know what Mike Tyson's problem is, but he keeps doing it. Why are these footballers rolling around on the floor for the minorest of taps? It's ridiculous. Eric Lamela took the slightest hit, remained standing for 2 seconds, then fell to the floor, then decided to hold his face and roll around on the ground. Now, to me, look, it was retaliation, but, you know, you've been watching football for a long time. Now, I'm not excusing violence on the pitch, but some of these retaliations and acts of supposed violence, they're barely anything. They really are barely anything. I absolutely agree with Graham Souness. Now, I know it sounds like a prehistoric comment because Graham Souness has said it, but come on, just get on with it. People are paying to watch this football match at home, and they don't want to see this petulance ruin a game. Of course, in my eyes, it's not a red card. Even Lamela's isn't a red card. It's a little bit of a scuffle, and neither's a red card for me. But you're going to send Anthony Martial off for it, then you must be consistent with your decision-making. How on earth hasn't Eric Lamela been sent off? What is going on? This cheat, Eric Lamela, was the root cause of the problem in the first place. He was the aggressor, yet the person who responds, who defends himself, is the one that gets sent off. How is that sending a positive message to anybody watching at home? Now, I'm quite angry, especially about that decision, because for me, that put the game beyond us. Were we deserving to be in the lead or anything at that point? Of course not. But it puts the game beyond us. I didn't think we were out of the game. We were getting caught on the counter-attack, which was a bit of a worry. But Spurs didn't take their chances. And when teams don't usually take their chances, another team usually gets a chance and takes their chance. Would that have happened? Well, we will never know, because the ref decides to send Anthony Martial off without even visiting his screen to see the full story. Where were VAR? Where were VAR? What is the point in them? What is the actual point in them? Then you get these sensationalisers like Gary Neville saying we were getting hammered anyway and it wouldn't have affected the result no matter what. Manchester United would not have lost that game 6-1 if we'd have had 11 players on the pitch. In fact, I would have been quite confident we would have found a goal at some point. Confident, because we weren't actually looking too bad on the ball. We did find ways through multiple times. Mason Greenwood came close. You know, even if we conceded 6 goals, we would have scored one or replied in some manner. We wouldn't have conceded 6 goals. I mean, the defence was absolutely atrocious. Eric Bailly got his chance today, and I've been an advocate of Eric Bailly getting his chance, and he blew it today. I don't want to see him play for Manchester United again. Awful. Now, I'm not going to excuse his defensive partner, Harry Maguire, because he was actually worse. He was actually worse today, and based on his current run of form, Harry Maguire should be dropped. But the problem is, we don't actually have any backup to actually play in his place. Harry Maguire should be dropped for his last few games. It's harsh on Eric Bailly because he's only just got his chance. But at the end of the day, you play that badly, you don't deserve another chance. Today from Eric Bailly and Harry Maguire was worse than what Victor Lindelof's done over the last few weeks. Victor Lindelof now, for me, is our #1 defender. And that is a shambles. The thing is, we've literally sent Chris Smalling out on loan. I don't know if he's actually been completed yet, but Chris Smalling's our best centre-back, and we're sending him out on loan. He is our best centre-back. He might not be the best on the ball, but in terms of consistency and basic defending, he is actually our best defender. We sent him out on loan. I'm beside myself. This is a joke. So, of course, the sensationalism doesn't stop with Gary Neville. The amount of people you see on Twitter automatically blaming Ollie for that loss. Now, I'm no fan of Ollie's tactics and strategy and his coaching style. I'm not against him. I just think he's got a lot to prove. I'm not necessarily one of those people who thinks that Ollie is a coach. I think he's more in the mould of a manager, as per an Ancelotti, who's now top of the league, by the way, and an Alex Ferguson, rather than a Pep or Klopp. He doesn't coach his team. He employs coaches to coach his team for him, and he is the manager who ultimately makes all the final decisions. That's the impression I get from Ollie. And if I was Ollie, I'd be seriously looking at Michael Carrick and McKenna. Seriously looking at those two, because they've been in this job for longer than Ollie now, and we're not seeing the fruition of anything they're doing. We're still relying on individual brilliance. Those people saying it's Ollie ball, it's basically just improvisation football, are absolutely correct. When we get the ball forward, it's improvisation football. We rely on individual talent. We don't play as an attacking unit, a cohesive attacking unit, something that we are usually known for, and we haven't done it for 8 years, to be honest. That's not just down on Ollie. But ultimately, it's just improvisational football. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But it won't win you a consistent amount of games to win the league. And I do agree with that, but I do think managers can improve. They can grow into the role. And Ollie has been doing that to a degree. But I think it's time to look at his coaches. Because it doesn't matter what players we get in. We can get Sancho in, as well as Messi, tomorrow. And I just don't see it getting us into a title race. Can we close the gap with those kind of players? Yes, but that's literally all it's going to do. And that's not good enough for Manchester United. I named this channel United's Glory because I want to talk about how we can get back to the top where we belong, bring back those glory days, hence the name United's Glory. But even with those players, with the current coaching setup, I can't see us doing it. Now, I'm not going to put it all down to Ollie. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm not going to place it on Ollie's head until he makes a decision on his coaching staff. Because, like I said, his coaching staff aren't good enough. They aren't good enough. If you want to be a manager and not a coach, then you must make sure you have the right people beneath you to get the best out of your team. Ferguson did it. He constantly replaced his assistant managers and his coaches and got the best guys in for the job. Every time Ferguson needed to evolve, he got the right men in that could allow him to adapt and evolve to the modern style of football. Ollie needs to do the same. McKenna, especially, is not good enough. So I just feel like using that game as a platform to push your agenda for Ollie out. And like I've just pointed out, I'm not fully behind Ollie, but I'm not Ollie out. Using that as an agenda to get Ollie out, it's opportunism at best. Of course, I understand what Gary Neville was trying to do. He's trying to put extra emphasis on the board not signing players because they haven't done it for 8 years. And we know that. And even if you look at last season, going into the season with the players we had, you expected a 6th place. That is ultimately all you expected. People seem to forget that we at least the majority of us predicted 5th or 6th at best for Manchester United last year. We came 3rd. Ollie exceeded what our expectations would have allowed us to achieve. Now, I know a lot of teams fell out of form at the end of last season and we took advantage of it, but at the end of the day, it's the end result that counts. It's where you finish at the end of the season that counts. Even if you compare this season to last season, we technically only have a point less than this time last year. And I guess you can point that towards the fact that we've not invested in the team. And I don't want to take away from that. I absolutely agree that we should be investing in this team. And you can't expect too much from Ollie this year. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of predictions for this season, once again, predicting 5th or 6th again because of the lack of investment. But I'm just saying let's avoid sensationalism, reactive sensationalism due to one game. Of course, it was poor. Man United should not be losing 6-1, especially to Spurs of all teams, especially to a Jose Mourinho team who aren't free-scoring teams. But there was a catalyst for that, and that was that ridiculous sending off for Anthony Martial. And of course, the fact that Anthony Martial reacted to somebody else doing the same thing to him that he ultimately got sent off for, which ultimately put the game beyond us. It put it to bed. And furthermore, regarding Gary Neville's sensationalism, Gary, I remember watching you as a kid get thumped up by Newcastle 5-0. 5-0 you lost. You got battered. There was no player sent off. You got absolutely mauled by Newcastle. David Ginola had you on toast. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't your team then still go on to win the league that year? There was no ridiculous penalty decision in that game. You just got fried. Absolutely fried. So stop with the sensationalism. Like I said, I do understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to put the pressure on the board. But ultimately, that game wasn't because of a awful performance. We were still in the game before that sending off. That sending off ultimately put the game beyond us, or at least made it extremely difficult to even get back into the game. Of course, Eric Bailly's ridiculous pass, which he shouldn't be playing again for after that, cost us even further. 3-1, it was literally impossible to get back in the game. Anyway, it's been an absolutely shambolic start to the season. We are already out of a title race. In fact, I think unless we absolutely hit the ground running after this international break, then I think we're out of the running to close that gap, which was what I was hoping we'd do this year. I didn't actually expect a title challenge. I expected us to try and half that gap on Liverpool to 15 points because we finished 33 points behind last year, which is far too big of a gap. I don't see us doing that at the moment. The players aren't playing cohesively at the moment, and some of these players in our team are just overrated. I've always wanted to be a fan of Paul Pogba, but the guy doesn't help himself. Technically brilliant, cohesively not that good, and I don't care what he did for France. International football fell behind club football a long time ago. You put that France team against Liverpool, they would get beat 6-1. Put Modric from Croatia, who France beat in that World Cup final in France's team instead of Pogba, they still win that World Cup. Elite club football just surpassed national football so long ago, it's ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying get rid of Pogba, but ultimately we should be looking into the fact that we can get a lot of money from him, replacing him with two players of good quality. You don't need to be technically brilliant to be a useful member of the team for a title-winning team. And we need players. We need players. And look, I'm not blaming Paul Pogba for that entire defeat either, because Harry Maguire was absolutely useless. Absolutely useless. He looked like a schoolboy on that pitch. In fact, Harry Maguire should be dropped. Harry Maguire and Bailly should be dropped. I'd bring Lindelof in, and if Chris Smalling hasn't gone out on loan yet, get him in. In fact, would Phil Jones have been that much worse than what Harry Maguire was today? I don't actually think so, I don't think Phil Jones would have been worse than Harry Maguire today. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I can't stand Phil Jones. Marcus Rojo wouldn't have been that bad today. It was shambolic from Harry Maguire, and he's our captain. Now, should he be our captain? I don't know who else would be the captain. That's the problem. I don't know who's a better captain in that team than Harry Maguire. Maybe Bruno Fernandes, but you got to say Bruno Fernandes came in after we had to announce a new captain. But what a shambolic performance. Eric Bailly, I didn't realise he was going to... When Eric Bailly got announced, I thought that's a good decision. What an atrocious decision it was. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, his performance levels have dropped so far. I just can't defend him anymore. Luke Shaw's average. He's always been average, but that's what I expect from Luke Shaw. If we're getting Tells in, then good, because we need a new left back. He isn't the problem position, though. I don't think left back was our problem position. Cavani, not problem position. I know we're going to need him now because Anthony Martial will miss 3 games, but striker wasn't a problem position. Right wing was a problem position. You could say centre-back's a problem position. Defensive midfield's a problem position. If Nemanja Matic isn't good enough to play in that pocket on his own, then he isn't good enough. Because if you are going to use a player like Pogba and his talents, you want him much further up the pitch. much further up the pitch rather than playing in a double pivot. And if Pogba can't play up further up the pitch and still contribute defensively, then he's not good enough either, really, is he? Bruno Fernandes went off at half-time. I've got the feeling he probably had a bit of petulance at half-time criticising the defence, because I can't see why we took him off when he's one of our harder workers, unless Ollie wanted to keep certain players on to embarrass them in their pathetic performances. Honestly, just awful. Anyway, guys, I'm just going to wrap it up because I think I'm just babbling now, but I do think I've covered everything I want to say. VAR and referee decisions are actually getting worse since VAR came in. They're getting worse. They're absolutely getting worse. They aren't better than what they used to be. At least you could put it down to human error beforehand. There's no excuse for it now. How can one player get sent off for reacting in the same way the aggressor initially acted towards him? Utter nonsense. Some of the handballs that are given, utter nonsense. But on a final note, I will say this. After the positive run we had at the end of last season, we had momentum. Momentum's a really hard thing to gain in football, a really hard thing to gain. You even notice that in Alex Ferguson's days. And don't forget, Alex Ferguson was the manager that lost 5-0 to Newcastle. He once lost 5-0 to Chelsea as well. In a very similar fashion to this, I remember Nicky Butt getting sent off, but we were already 2-0 down at that point. Then, of course, we lost 6-1 to Man City, 6-3 to Southampton. So even with these players we say are top-level elite players, you can have those kind of days. But we had the momentum coming off of last season. All the board had to do was keep that momentum going so we could bring it into this season. They bottled it. They haven't done it, but this isn't the first time they've done this to us, is it? It's rinse, repeat, get a manager in, back him so he gets his top four. We get that sponsorship money in. We get the Champions League qualifier money in. Then they won't back them because they're getting the necessary money that they need. The incentive to win the league is literally a couple of million quid. Spending 90 million to earn 2 million. That doesn't make sense for a business. And our club is run as a business, not a football club. These people are cancers to this football club. And I can only see one thing happening. The sensationalism is pointing towards Ollie already. And like I've said, there's a lot of questions that Ollie needs to answer in terms of his coaching. And I'd start with getting rid of the coaches he's got at his disposal now. But ultimately, if he isn't backed, how do you expect him to give his optimum performance for us? You can't. So we need to change this board or have a complete upheaval, get a sporting director in as soon as possible, because I just don't see any of this changing. Rinse, repeat, but I can only see it going one way. I think by Christmas, Ollie's going to be gone. What a bad day. What a bad, bad day. Anyway, guys, if you've managed to listen all the way through to the end of this rant, congratulations, well done. I actually think my rant was probably more entertaining than Manchester United today. But ultimately, we need to avoid sensationalism and actually apply reasoning to what is actually happening on the pitch. We can't apply sensationalism all the time. We know that we need new players. We need to keep the focus on the board, of course, because they aren't doing their jobs. The Glazers aren't doing their jobs. They aren't working in the best interest of the football club. But what happens on the pitch, there are other factors that do play roles for that game. And as far as I'm concerned, Ollie does have a squad good enough to compete with Tottenham and not lose 6-1. Of course, he can't control refereeing decisions like that. No manager can. Ferguson wouldn't have. In fact, the only thing I would say as well, Ferguson would have been on that pitch berating that referee. Ollie should have been doing that. And Ollie absolutely should be sticking it to the board in terms of transfers. This is going to define all his time at Manchester United, so he needs to stand up. And he's got the backing of enough supporters, the love of enough supporters, to be backed if he comes out and says that. If he continues to cook for the Glazers, then, you're going one way, Ollie. Your dream job is going out the window before you even get a chance to prove that you can learn to coach or get the guys in to coach the team for you, because a few more of those results and the Ollie haters will have enough steam to really go for your head. And the Glazers will take it because they just look for any out they can. They shift any blame they can. They don't care about you. They will fire you and get another manager in. And we'll go through the same process again. We'll get Poch in, who's a very good coach, don't get me wrong. But, Spurs just fired him and employed our ex-coach who we fired. We'll get Poch in. We'll have a good season, get Champions League. They won't back him and he won't be able to repeat that success. Oh, man. Anyway, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Smash a like on the video if you thought that who's man of the match. If you thought that Bruno was man of the match for scoring a penalty, that's literally all we can cling on to. Until next time, talk soon.